Anwyn Owens leaned over with her hands on her knees, panting with exhaustion. She stared at the edge of a rooftop and looked down in frustration. The building was one of many, laid out with less than geometrical precision, in block after block of shabby rundown habitations, in the worst part of the port city of Cantry. The buildings weren't tall, most were only 3 to 5 stories high. They weren't neatly organized into rows or uniform in height, which made traversing the rooftops challenging. Jumping between them meant finding some that were of a similar height and close enough to each other. She had been making those decisions and crossing between those buildings as quickly as possible for too long, according to her rapidly tiring body. She felt as if she had been chased across these rooftops for hours, although it had probably been somewhat short of 20 minutes. Unfortunately, it was a strenuous 20 minutes, she reflected. She was tired, although at the start of her run, she'd had enough energy to laugh at the people chasing her. Anwyn had reached a point where there was no roof in any direction away from her pursuers that would be an easy jump. She continued to look at all possible escape routes. The best option she saw would be a challenging jump even if she hadn't been tired. She moved away from the edge nearest the building she intended to try for, as a half-dozen or so young men and women chasing her renewed their shouting. Their persistence in chasing her had demonstrated that they knew this section of the city well. That was an advantage she missed, having arrived earlier that day. They were all too aware that she was in what would be a dead end for most people. Few options didn't leave her falling several stories to the pavement, or being caught and presumably beaten, or possibly worse, by the gang chasing her. If only she had been sensible and taken an autocar from the spaceport to her destination, she thought ruefully. After her adventures on the planet Deathalos, and 6 months at a prestigious starship piloting school, she should have learned to think more carefully. But no, curious about a planet she had never visited, she had decided to rent a small air car and tour the city before heading to her new employer. It had seemed like a safe and fun adventure, checking out a new city on a new planet. Her experience on other planets had all been within the League of Free Planets, giving her a skewed impression of civilization. This was not a League planet, with laws that were observed, mandatory basic living conditions, and people who were generally less likely to want to rob or attack strangers on city streets.